by the letter of the law, Lineker's probably in the clear. He hasn't endorsed or attacked a political party. He hasn't criticised the character of individual politicians. This isn't an election period. So, the guidelines specifically said, you're free to express your opinions about issues that matter.
The Match of the Day presenters signed an open letter to politicians calling for a fair new plan for refugees. The letter's been signed by a group of other celebrities too, comes a day before MPs vote on the government's Rwanda bill. It's drawn the ire of Conservative MPs, but did he actually break the rules that the BBC brought in September in response to the row earlier this year, which led to Gary Lineker being taken off air? We asked the Defence Secretary Grant Shapps if Gary Lineker should be sacked.
Well, look, I think it's perfectly right that, I express my views, which is I just fundamentally disagree with him. What happens to him next is up to the BBC. As far as I see it, they have issued previous warnings to him, so it'll be interesting to see what they do and say at this point. But, I know millions of people watch him for his football commentary and TV presenting. I would have thought it was better to stick with that.
Stick to football, hashtag. Alex Farber is the Times' media correspondent and joins us now. Morning, Alex.
Morning, Asma.
So we've read these rules a few times and read them out, and I don't know. Are the rules a bit vague, or has he just not broken them?
I think you're quite right, Asma. And at the time when these new rules were introduced in September, as a direct result of the last few furores surrounding a tweet Gary Lineker said in which he compared the government's language around immigration to 1930s Germany. They brought in these new guidelines in September. And at the time, there were concerns and warnings that they were, I think one BBC journalist called them clear as mud. And others said that, we're only going to get to know how useful they are when his next controversial comments emerge. And the answer is, we don't know. The guidelines are not, by definition, it's very difficult to police exactly what people say. And the guidelines are almost... Some will definitely consider that Lineker should not be saying what he's saying. Others will be able to point to the fact that there's nothing in the guidelines that prevents him from doing so.
Does it matter that he doesn't work in news, or is that irrelevant to these rules?
No, that's definitely relevant. There's much, much stricter guidelines around those people that worked in news and current affairs. And if Lineker were to work in news, then this certainly wouldn't be appropriate. But given that he's not in news, he does work on one of the 12 flagship programmes which were highlighted as part of these guidelines. They were specifically identified because the individuals that work on those shows are said to have a special responsibility to the BBC. So that has to be taken into consideration. But news, definitely not. Other programmes, a bit more of a grey area.
I'm just thinking of Carol Vorderman now, who is very critical of the government. Pretty much every tweet she puts out is political in some way. It's with a small p, and she's critical of the government, and that some people say that's an acceptable, fine position to take. However, I think she said that she had to leave her programme because of the guidelines. So what's the difference?
I think that I would say that the tone of Carol Vorderman's tweets and the open criticism and sometimes personal attacks were much stronger than Lineker's. He's quite a savvy operator on social media. And whilst he pushes up against the line, he definitely doesn't break through it in a way that perhaps Carol Vorderman was and felt that she wanted to do more freely.
What do you think this means then for these rules? Are they just going to stick, the way that they are? They seem pretty vague to us. We've been through them a few times. Do you think that's it, really, that the BBC won't tweak them in any way? They're just going to wait until someone says something that actually does break these rules and then take the action?
Yeah, I don't expect them to make any amendments to the rules. They were only introduced, a couple of months ago, following a very lengthy review from a respected guy, John Hardy, an ex-ITN chief executive. I don't anticipate them wanting to tinker with them because that just results in a mockery of it. I think by the letter of the law, Lineker's probably in the clear. He hasn't endorsed or attacked a political party. He hasn't criticised the character of individual politicians. This isn't an election period. So, the guidelines specifically said, you're free to express your opinions about issues that matter. This is clearly an issue that matters to him. and a lot of other people. And, you know, I think that he could quite reasonably say, look, I'm entirely entitled to do this.
Alex, interesting. Thank you. Alex Farber, who's the Times' media correspondent.
And just the question, the line that he uses here, he says, we need a new system that reflects the will of the British people. And that's very hard to argue that that's impartial, isn't it? Like, I think it's probably not a breach of the rules, but if the rules don't cover saying that, then why have them? Maybe we should have no rules, Asma.
But does anyone know what the will of the British people is unless you put it to a vote?
No, of course you don't. It's a silly point. It was always.
But politicians say this all the time,
Exactly.
don't they? What people want is.
Yeah, let me say it's very clear.
What people want is what I'm saying today, in a massive coincidence.
Which is why Gary Lineker is a politician and he's also a football presenter. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe none of this matters.
I think we slightly disagree on this for the first time in 3.5 years.
What?
We ever so slightly disagree.
So why?
Well,
I can't quite work out what I think.
no, because I don't think he has.
You think he's not? You think he's just fine?
But he hasn't. He hasn't
rules.
broken those rules.
I agree with you. No, I do agree with you.
Excellent. Oh, thank goodness for that.
I agree. He's not breached the
Oh,
rules.
there's a bit of jeopardy there.
It does suggest that the rules don't really have any point.
Yes,
is probably what I would say.
Right.